One.
Good
Good
morning,
morning,
Rabbi.
Rabbi.
Good morning, Rabbi.
We are learning Mishnah Chagiga, Perek Beis, Chapter 2, Mishnah Aleph, Mishnah 1. Okay, we'll see how far we get today. Ein Darshan Ba'arayos B'Shloisha. When it comes to darshaning, meaning when it comes to teaching others regarding arayos, regarding the forbidden marriages mentioned in the Torah, you don't do it with less than 3. You don't teach it to 3. It's got to be less than 3. You don't teach it to 3 or more students. What's the reason for that? The reason is because in a group of that size, some students might not pay attention to the lesson, believe it or not. And then out of ignorance, they may rule leniently. Meaning the issue here is that, when we're talking about arayos here, we're not talking about learning chumash. We're talking about actually the laws of arayos that are not explicit, but rather they have to be derived. And that kind of discussion can lead to a situation where, let's say you have 3 students. So you're the Rebbe, the teacher, is going to be focusing on one for whatever reason. The other 2 are going to start schmoozing because, the Rebbe's focusing on one. What are we going to do? So they're going to start talking to each other. And while they're talking to each other, either they're not going to hear what the Rebbe is teaching to this one student, or they're going to get involved in their talking and not going to hear the rest of the lesson. And that could be a problem because if they miss out on the laws of arayos that are not explicit, then it could come out they may do something eventually wrong. And that's especially a concern when it comes to arayos because of the fact that arayos, these kinds of matters, are people have a tendency toward, they have a desire toward it, and therefore you have to be very careful about it. Now, the examples that we talk about here that are not explicit, we mentioned in the previous Mishnah, it was a previous Mishnah, right? That one example is that if a person has a daughter not from his wife, right? He had a daughter not through marriage, so that is not explicit in the Torah. That has to be derived. Okay. There's another example of something that they bring down here in the notes. Another example, which is also something that's not explicit, but it has to be derived. The mother of one's father-in-law. Your father-in-law's mother is an erva, and it's an erva d'oraisa apparently, but it's not something that's explicit. It has to be derived. We're not talking about what's called shniyas. Shniyas are rabbinic marriages that are forbidden. We're talking about the ones that need to be derived. So therefore, if you only have 2 students, right? So you talk to one, the other one's going to, what am I supposed to do? I have no one to talk to. So he's going to listen in. But if he has a partner and he may start schmoozing with him, and it's possible they're going to miss what's being taught. Therefore, the halacha says when you teach it to them, you teach it. You don't teach it. You don't teach it to 3 and up. That's the first part. The next, nor when it comes to teaching ma'aseh bereishis, which is called the account, which they call that the account of creation. That also cannot be taught to 2 or more people at one time. Now, the reason for this, let me read to you here from the notes. This subject contains wisdom that should be kept hidden, such as Kabbalistic secrets that describe how Hashem created the world. This according from the commentary of the Tiferes Yisrael. You've got certain secrets involved in Ma'aseh Bereishis, and they're really meant to be kept hidden. As such, it may be passed only from individual to individual and not be taught publicly. So not even 2. Goes to 1 student, and that's it. V'loi b'merkava b'yachid. Nor when we talk about the merkava. The merkava literally means the chariot, which we'll explain what that means soon. There too, you don't eat. Now that's interesting. Merkava is not b'yachid. A merkava isn't even taught to an individual, ela imkein ha'yachacham umevim midaitai, unless he is wise enough to basically be taught, be able to taught the, some, let's call it, we call it Rashi Prakim, some starting points, and then he would be wise enough that he can figure out the rest on his own, which is unbelievable. Now, Merkava is referring to, at least according to one explanation, Merkava is referring to the vision of heaven experienced by the prophet Yechezkel and the prophet Yeshaya. And it is called the account of the chariot because it describes angelic beings bearing the throne of Hashem like horses drawing a chariot. That's why it's called the Merkava. Again, these are all Kabbalistic concepts or descriptions of Kabbalistic concepts. Now, Maaseh Merkava is even more secret nature than Maaseh Bereshis, for it contains elaborate descriptions of the angels and the heavens. Thus, it may not be taught to anyone in detail. We may only give a general outline to a scholar who is perceptive enough to infer the details on his own. That's when it comes to what we call Merkava. These, again, are deep Kabbalistic concepts, deeper than the other, and therefore Maaseh Bereshis is only to one, and Merkava is only to one, only one, again, that you can give your general outline to and you can figure out the rest. All right. Now, the next part of the Mishnah, don't really know how to explain it, but we'll just go through it. Whoever looks, whoever examines, that's a good word, because mistakel doesn't just mean to give a little look. Mistakel means to be focused. So whoever examines four things, it's better that he wasn't born if he gets involved in these things. Ma'alamala, ma'alamata, ma'alafonim, ma'ala'ochar. What's above, what's below, what's before, and what's after. Okay, so what does that mean? Again, a very general explanation would mean. Again, I'll say it to you how they bring it in here. Ma'alamala means what is above the heavens. That's lamala. Ma'alamata means what is below the world. I have no idea what that means. Okay. Now, lefanim, before means what existed before the world was created. And after means what will exist after. At the end of days. If you start examining these kinds of things, which are incapable to fully understand, for the human mind to fully understand, then better you get involved in it. The problem is when you get involved in concepts that you have no idea what you're talking about, you have ideas, you have concepts that the human mind can't even fathom, then it can actually lead you to heresy. Forget about making you nuts. It can lead you to heresy, to apikoresis. And better, and if that's what you're leading yourself into, better you weren't born. Okay? If you'll end up being what we call an apikoris, a heretic. Now, whoever is not concerned about the honor of his creator, again, better that he didn't come to the world. What is this talking about? The person who's not careful about the honor of his creator. This refers to a person who sins in a place where no person will see him, but ignores the fact that Hashem sees everything. And that's very powerful. Okay? Now we're talking about where a person who sins basically in private. He says to himself, nobody sees me, and he ignores the fact that Rebbeinu Shalom sees everything that's going on. That is what the Mishnah here means. He's not chas hakved kaina. He doesn't care about the honor of his creator, and for that we say better that he was not born. Okay, now do Chofetz Chaim. Okay. Now, Dinei. Lefi mashbe'ar nebes Hashem yisbarach haklam dapei tlasa. According to the rules of apei tlasa, of again saying something that is derogatory, someone's lashon hara in front of three, and therefore there's an opinion that one of those three, again under many conditions, as we already said before, would be able to now repeat it to somebody else. Now, but again, you have to make sure that you're not embellishing, you're not adding. If the person told you don't spread it, you're not allowed to spread it. So, tzarech lizarek sheyesh ben shiva tuvei ir, v'ayim b'dvar hanagas anshei ir. When the 7 elders of a city get together to decide things for the city, there was a period of time for the Jewish people that Jewish cities, Jewish communities were run by a council of elders, a council of, not necessarily the rabbi was not part of that council of elders, but there was a council of people that were in charge of the city, and they would make decisions about how to deal with the city. Okay? And sometimes they have to evaluate, how much you pay for taxes and how much you pay for taxes, and that wasn't always didn't make everybody happy. And they would decide taxes. They would decide the local taxes. That's one example. And they had an argument. Some said yay and some said nay. V'amdu l'minyan. So what do? You go for a vote. V'holchu basaruba. And they follow the majority. That's what you do, right? That's what you do in that kind of situations. כשיצא מחדר הקול, צריכים לזהר מאוד כל אחד ואחד שלספר אחר כך דייתוי, או דאס פלוני שהיה מתחילה בעניין זה, להקל לא יעשה פלוני, החברה רבו עליו וכריחו ללך אחר דייתם. You cannot go afterwards, basically, and start telling everybody, oh, he voted against you. Or so-and-so originally wanted to be on your favor, but then he voted against you. Of course, if they made up not to tell the person who is affected, if they made up not to send it to him, of course you can't. But even without saying anything, nonetheless, לספר לאחר בלשון שירה בדבר ושדייתו נויתו לזה גם עתה, שאין יכול לריב בעבור זה מחבריו הנשארים, גם כן איסר גמר הוא. But let's say, so they said, don't tell him anything, right? Don't tell him anything. But if, let's say, the point is, your whole point is this guy comes after you. Now, this guy who didn't get a good decision affects him negatively. He came after you. So you know what you want to say? You want to say, look, what could I do? I have to follow the majority. So you basically took the blame off yourself and put it on everybody else. That you're not allowed to do. Okay. And it makes no difference whether, basically you're saying it on your own to that person or that person came after you. In any manner, you may not remove the guilt from you and put it on somebody else, even if it's true. Have a wonderful day.
Thank you.
And a good Tvach Shavua Tov.